Ryokai Ryokai! Welcome to The Kaiju is in the Details. I'm Ian.
I'm Haru.
This is a podcast about Godzilla over the past couple of episodes, and we're keeping it strong with Godzilla Raids Again. Haru, what did you think of this film?
It's a sequel, all right.
And it sure was made the same year, huh? Okay, not the same. I gotta pull up my chronology here. It was the year after, but barely like it was. So Godzilla released in October, Godzilla Raids Again in April. So less than a year's worth of time.
Mm-hmm.
The success of Godzilla necessitated the creation of Godzilla Raids Again. And it shows. It really does show.
You know, the decades have proven that rushed sequels are never a good idea.
This is truly the son of Kong to King Kong. to Godzilla. It's but Godzilla is such a better movie than King Kong that Godzilla Raids Again is not nearly as bad as Son of Kong.
Oh yeah, no. Son of Kong was like kind of F tier or D- tier.
It was Z grade trash.
Yeah. This movie
is like a B movie.
I would give it I was gonna say maybe even a C, C or a B. It's a passing grade, but they're better movies you can watch if you want.
It is drive-in theater fare.
Yeah,
I could see you having this on in the background while I'm fucking a girl in a back seat of a a Chevy Tahoe. Is that a I don't know cars. This is a bad bit for me to try and do. Yeah. I have a bit of a hot take here. If you'll allow me. If you'll allow me to have a hot take. I kind of think this might be one of the worst Godzilla films ever made.
Really?
Yeah. I'm thinking about it, and I think the only one I like less than this is the one that's 50% recycled footage by volume.
Okay.
And that's pretty bad. I can find things to like in basically every other movie out there. I don't think there's much to like in this movie.
Yeah.
There are things I do like, but there's not much.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for the most part, it was there were bits of it that were entertaining. I liked the addition of the secondary kaiju that Godzilla was fighting. That was kind of neat.
Yeah, we should talk about him.
Yeah, what was it? The Anklas. Right?
So here's a little issue here, Haru. This creature has had so many fucking names. So in the original Japanese is Angulas or Angulas. In the English, they're gonna call him Anguirus.
Ooh.
So Angulas, Anguirus, Anguirus sometimes you hear. That one is, I think, just from one weird dub, but some people stick to it. So you need to know that one too. It's it's a weird situation with that Kaiju's name. This is gonna be a recurring character. Basically from here on out though, Anguirus is a friend to Godzilla. Despite the fact that in this one, Godzilla fucking murders Anguirus.
Yeah.
Fucking kills him dead and then burns the corpse.
Yeah. Osaka just kind of becomes a battlefield for Godzilla and Anguirus.
Fucking Osaka Castle becomes a squared circle for them to duke it out in.
Yeah.
Which, like, okay, that's like a really weird thing. This is my first time watching Godzilla Raids Again since going to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Osaka. Osaka Castle's really high up.
Yeah.
They like, even for Kaiju, they climbed a decent amount to get up there. They got a workout in getting up there.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. And then, like, they must have gone through so many moats, because I can't imagine the bridges over the moats would have carried their weight.
Oh,
so
they
must have, like, either stepped right over it, or, like, you know, it seems like a good place to break an ankle for a kaiju.
Yeah. Hopefully the guy wearing the suit was watching his footing.
Well, they did have people on set to make sure nobody drowned this time around. So
yay!
you could sleep soundly with that knowledge. And also, they made the suits a lot lighter. I mean, obviously there wasn't an Anguirus suit in the last movie, but there was a Godzilla suit, and the Godzilla suit is significantly lighter this time. And it looks like dog shit. It looks so bad. The original Godzilla suit looks really, really nice, but it's really stiff. This one is a lot more mobile, good for wrestling. But it really does not look good. And the puppets look even worse than last time.
This suit is very bouncy.
It is. The head kind of bobbles around a lot because it can turn around now, but it really makes it bobble a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the indentations of the suit when it gets popped in, you know.
Yeah.
Where the places where the body isn't. It just looks worse all around. We're gonna see some better looking suits in the near future as we move into the color era, but not super soon. We have the suit in Godzilla vs. King Kong is not particularly good either. So I think the one in Godzilla vs. Mothra is pretty nice though. So once we get there, we'll have a nice time. But the Anguirus suit I think is actually quite nice. I think the Anguirus suit looks pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah.
And the Anguirus puppet does too. The movement it makes is a little strange. It keeps like moving its head in the circle when it gets hit by the atomic breath. What'd you think of that roar, by the way?
Which roar? The Anguirus roar?
Yeah.
I think it was kind of neat.
Yeah, it's a saxophone.
Oh, okay.
This is the one I told you about before. It's a saxophone beat that's been edited with audio editing techniques, and I think if I remember correctly, they like brought it out of tune and such. They really fucked around with this saxophone, but it is made with a saxophone. You can kind of hear it when you like think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Funny thing, Akira Ifukube not in this movie. I told you at the beginning that he was not his music is not in this movie. Well, actually, was there any of his music in this movie? I don't think there was on a single track from the previous movie. But yeah, there's a new composer for this one, and it's not credited on Wikipedia. You have to dig a little bit to find this. Masaru Sato, who's also from Hokkaido.
Oh.
I don't know what that says about people from Hokkaido, but they got good musical taste. I gotta say, I think the music in this film is fantastic. It fits right in with the Godzilla canon, so much so where I didn't even know it wasn't Akira Ifukube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
it sounds like his work.
The soundtrack, honestly,
it's a little sparse.
It's pretty. It's sequel material, like.
Ah, come on, it's good.
Yeah, no,
it's just not much of it.
I'm saying that in a positive sense. It's like it kind of.
Oh, it fits. You see what you're saying?
Yeah, it fits the theme of the original.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. There.
Yeah.
Yes, I like I said, I think it fits so well into the canon that I literally didn't know.
Yeah.
These songs will be used again in later movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he will. Our boy Masura Sato will also return to direct a couple more not to direct, to compose for a couple more films. So, yeah, you'll be hearing some of these tracks again. Particularly that ba ba bum ba da ba bum bum ba da.
Oh yeah.
That one, that track is like, yeah, that's a classic.
That one sounded pretty iconic to me.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely iconic. I believe that one gets play in Godzilla vs. Megalon. It probably gets played in other ones as well, but that's the one I like that really comes to mind. I think it's the scene where they're building Jet Jaguar, but that's for another time. That's for way in the future. I think that's a 70s movie, actually. And we're still in the 50s, 1955 specifically. But yeah, it's really good music. The model building is still incredible. The suits don't look so good, but I think this is a practical issue of just trying to make. Like I said, the Anguirus suit looks just fine to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the Godzilla suit that doesn't look so good. And it seems like it's a practical issue of just how heavy the last one is and trying to make something that can actually fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed this, but Godzilla's beam effect looks a lot more like a beam instead of a spray.
Yeah.
That's just like a development that's happening, and it's going to keep happening. It's interesting. This movie is not like particularly good, I would say, as far as like a Godzilla film goes. It's still miles above some of the other movies we've seen.
Yeah.
But despite that, it really has a lot of influence on later films, like just its development of how Godzilla is.
Mm-hmm.
Godzilla's a lot more animalistic in this one. He's not the bomb. He's an animal as well.
Yeah.
He's got a different roar. Like it's still based on the original, but it has these like little short.
Yeah, like when they introduced Anguirus, they mentioned like they're supposed to be like natural enemies.
Yeah, I got a quote from that real quick. Anguirus is the only dinosaur with a hatred for warlike predators.
Yeah. and so yeah, that kind of sets them up for just Godzilla and Anguirus are going to be fighting a lot during this movie.
Yeah. You know, I just like realized I kind of glossed over this, but the reason why there's an issue with the Anguirus versus Anguillus is just because of the fact that Japanese don't have an L or an R. They have something that's kind of in between.
Yeah.
Which is also what made saying that yokai line that they say in the movie over and over and over again kind of hard to do, because it's not yokai, it's ryokai. Yeah. Ryokai. There we go. I got it. You have to really lightly hit it because it's not an R. It's just like getting your tongue in the place where an R would be without saying the R. It's difficult.
Yeah,
for me.
I had to explain to my fellow first graders after I got back from Japan that when you say onigiri, you're not saying onigiri, you're not saying onigiri, you're saying onigiri.
Yeah, just like you're saying Gojira.
Yeah.
Not Gojira. Oh man. It's part of what's caused the confusion on his name, I'm sure. Although I don't know where Anguirus came from.
Mm-hmm.
But back to special effects after that little tangent there. We get some of our. So I'm pretty sure this didn't happen a lot in the first film. We get some of those shots where Godzilla is like stomping around in the background where and people are running around in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
Those shots are a classic. They don't look particularly good here. I think it's the black and white, and that makes it harder to get this effect to work with black and white footage because you are having to like use chemical processes to get this transparency to happen. Or you're like physically cutting, and that's difficult. But it works. It works pretty well. This effect. You really do look. It really does look like a bunch of small people running around while this terrible looking Godzilla suit stomps around in a fake city.
Mm-hmm.
If the suit looked better, I think the effect would be sold better, but unfortunately. That wouldn't matter so much if the movie were a bit more interesting, I feel like.
Yeah.
How would you describe the human plot in this film, Haru?
Not very interesting.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Kind of boring.
They're like, I think the most interesting part of the human plot was just the drinking party.
The drinking party was fun. These characters like each other, and I like that. They have good chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
It's just they don't have anything else. They don't have anything interesting to do.
Like, we don't have anyone as noble as any of the characters from the first movie.
And even though we do have some characters from the first movie, Dr. Yamane makes a brief cameo. He comes in to show off some stock footage from the previous movie to pad out the film, and then he leaves. He's like, here's what we dealt with in Tokyo. See ya. I also love that this kind of has a little bit of a Jaws revenge kind of deal, where the monster follows them for some reason.
Yeah.
Like they're in Osaka. If you didn't watch the movie, which you should have, but if you didn't, the main characters work for a fishing company, and their fishing company gets destroyed by Godzilla when it arrives in Osaka. And so the guy who owns it is just like, okay, well, we were kind of planning on building and relocating to Hokkaido anyways, so why don't we just do that? And so they do. And then Godzilla shows up in Hokkaido and destroys one of their ships. It's like, damn, these guys can't catch a break.
Yeah.
But then also they won't leave Godzilla alone. They're like, okay, Godzilla destroyed our ship. Now we're going to track it down for the military. Like, this is not your concern, dude. You fly planes to find fish for a fishing company. What are you doing tracking Godzilla? It's very strange.
I will say one thing that stood out to me about this film was they put a lot more effort into tracking Godzilla's precise location.
Oh yeah, you get a lot of coordinates in this film.
Oh yeah. the original movie, they were kind of had vague awareness of where he was at certain times, but they didn't know precisely where he was, except for when they needed to know for plot's sake. But this time around, like, you could track on a map where Godzilla was at any given time.
Except for when it left from Osaka, then nobody knew where it was until they found it again.
Yeah.
And then once they found it again, they were like, okay, here's the precise coordinates.
Also, they love planes in this movie.
Yeah, this movie is all planes all the time.
So many planes.
This would give Godzilla a run for its money on planes.
Yeah.
But not on explosions, but only just.
Yeah.
It's got almost as many explosions as Godzilla. It's like they took a note from the fact that, like obviously Godzilla hadn't come out yet, but they're like, okay, all these foreign companies are really into the destruction part of Godzilla. What if it was just that? I will say Ishiro Honda did not return to direct for this. He was busy with another film at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they rushed this film into production and he was working on another film. So we do have a different director on this one, and that also kind of feels, sounds about right. I feel like Godzilla without Ishiro Honda kind of is missing something, at least like for now.
Yeah.
Like most of the time in this like early period where Ishiro Honda isn't there to direct, it does feel kind of But not all of them are going to be this bad as far as that goes. I think some of the other directors can do some interesting things with it. It's just Ishiro Honda has like a very particular vision.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like the spectacle necessarily. Like I think he's fine with the spectacle, but he wants the spectacle to serve a purpose. Right?
Yeah.
He's not anti-spectacle, and he's gonna get really. This is something that's gonna like be coming up as we go through these movies. He gets really tired of making fucking sequels for Godzilla, and like I think he gets tired of the commercialization of this thing that is like a metaphor for the atomic bomb. He really hates making kids movies. So that's going to be like something that comes up as we continue on in Ishiro Honda's journey through the Godzilla franchise. His last film is a long ways from now, but he's going to quit doing them for a while before that last film happens. He like comes back to the franchise for that last film and then doesn't do another one. And so it kind of feels it feels a lot more empty in some ways. There's a lot more scenes that feel like they do nothing to serve the movie other than to do plot. The establishing scene of the airplane goes on way too long and it's just kind of nothing. But then again, the more scenes you have, the more work you have to do, right? If you can extend one scene out longer, that's less work you have to do. And that's they really had to be tight on the work schedule here to get this movie out in time, which is why they couldn't wait for Ishiro Honda to get back.
Yeah.
Instead, we had Motoyoshi Oda, who storied film director himself. It's just I don't know. Ishiro Honda is like is just has a particular vision for Godzilla that not everyone else had. That's just the thing of it, and it's not like a bad thing or anything. I think there's room for multiple visions of Godzilla for sure, but I think Ishiro Honda's vision is like lightning in a bottle,
Yeah, I think so. Like where you mentioned that Ishiro Honda doesn't like having to do too many sequels for this. It's almost like he's suffering from success. Like he poured his soul into making a masterpiece, and then capitalism comes along and is like, "Hey, we want more of this."
There's a lot of conversations between him and Akira Kurosawa, where Kurosawa's like, "Why don't you leave Toho and stop making these fucking Godzilla movies?" and Ishiro Honda seems to like he wants to, because he wants to stop making these Godzilla movies, but he's like a loyal company man is part of it too. So he never really leaves Toho until eventually he stops directing almost entirely, and then he becomes like an assistant director with Akira Kurosawa. But yeah, Toho kind of ends up putting him in this like Godzilla, in like a Godzilla corner for the rest of his career, almost. At least his career with Toho. He does do other movies, but it's gonna become less and less of a thing. He's gonna be making more and more Godzilla movies, and once we reach the 60s, it's like a Godzilla movie a year. At that point, they start churning them out.
Yeah.
I mean, they churned this one out too, so no surprise. But I mean, like, hell, we got Godzilla last year. In our timeline, we had Godzilla last year. We're in 1955. Godzilla Raids Again. Next year, Rodan. A couple of years after that, Varan. Couple years after that, Mothra. Then the year after that, Godzilla versus King Kong. Then the year after that, 2 years after that, well, I guess the year after that we have Atragon. 2 years after that we have Mothra versus Godzilla. Same year we have Ghidorah. Like it becomes this like snowball effect of these Godzilla movies, where we get this term Kaiju Eiga from.
Godzilla was suffering from MCU syndrome before the MCU was this thing.
I mean, that's the thing, is that most of those, or not most, but like a decent portion of those movies I just mentioned were fucking crossover movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's literally MCU shit, except it's, better made films because they have like artistic directors who have some degree of control over their work, instead of having one corporate overlord running everything and telling the directors what they can and cannot include in their fucking movies.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, the corporate overlord at MCU movies is also a director, but he's not just a corporate ghoul. He's an actual director as well, but not a great one. But yeah, you're gonna get a lot of crossovers. You're gonna get a lot of movies rolling out all at the same time, and then people are gonna get tired of it, just like they did with MCU, and then they're gonna stop coming. Especially as the movies start to dumb down a bit.
Yeah.
History repeats itself. It's like poetry, it rhymes. And you know what? So is this movie. This movie is a lot like Godzilla. It, in a way, like it's like the prequel trilogy of Star Wars. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Yeah.
My favorite George Lucas quote, because it's just such a good quote to use. It's like poetry, it rhymes. It's such an interesting concept when applied to film.
Mm-hmm.
And it works here too, because we have yet another love triangle. Godzilla appears again. There's only one way he can be stopped: by the sacrifice of someone in the love triangle that solves the love triangle.
Yeah.
Except this time, not everyone in the party knows that it's a love triangle. Like, I'm pretty sure Sarazawa knew, just by like context clues.
Yeah.
This time, this time the guy who is originally in love with the girl is the girlfriend of the girl, is the one who survives, and he has no clue that his friend who just died wanted to cuck him.
Yeah.
And you know what? The girl did not seem not into it, if I'm being honest. She seemed to kind of be okay with it. Like Tsukioka and Himeda are partners. They keep joking about how they're going to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And Kobayashi's like, Kobayashi goes to Hokkaido, and everyone to like survey he works there for a while, and then everyone like comes up to meet him after they establish a base there, and they're like, he's like, everyone there has started calling him bridegroom because he likes a girl,
mm-hmm.
which is strange. And so Himeda is like, okay, what's going on with that? And he's like, nothing. And apparently the person he's pining after is her, who he hasn't seen since he left up there. And the way they denote this is with a picture that is like her, but in like a school uniform. I do gotta wonder how he got that picture. What's going on there, Kobayashi? It's I'm trying desperately to find something to say about this human plot, honestly. That's the plot. It's a love triangle. It's not particularly interesting. It doesn't even come up until the very end of the movie. Kobayashi and Himeda don't have a single conversation after she finds the picture of herself in his notebook.
Mm-hmm.
Or his journal or whatever. Tsukioka doesn't have a conversation with her about it. Tsukioka doesn't have a conversation with Kobayashi about it. He doesn't even know. Tsukioka doesn't even know. Also, I think I'm saying that wrong. I think it's more like Tsukioka. I think that U gets swallowed.
Yeah. Yeah,
sometimes it sounds like they were just saying Kyoka.
There's just not really anything to say about the human plot.
Which is a shame, because that's like what keeps you invested in a Godzilla movie. I think this is a clear example of what I was talking about in the first Godzilla movie episode. When you make the human plot bad, it makes the entire thing fall apart.
Yeah, because with the flow of the Godzilla film, like you have this like scenes of destruction, or the scenes where people are like trying to either fight or deter Godzilla. And then you have the in-between scenes, like when you kind of need to bring in a different kind of tension. And like that's what the first movie did pretty well, was it had that like tension that that was going on between the three main characters. Mm-hmm. And then this time around it just feels like the movie's dead when Godzilla isn't attacking. I wouldn't say fully...
Sometimes it feels like it's dead when he's on screen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say fully dead. Like there were some comical scenes with during the drinking party, but like
I think
other than that, there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot there to.
I think
draw
the characters have a lot of nice like banter and charm to them, and like they have fun with each other, but they just don't do anything. I'm not invested in what they're doing because they're not doing anything.
It lacks tension.
Yeah. Even though, like, I guess they do something at the end of the movie where they're doing the like trying to track down Godzilla. That's the only time where they do anything, it seems. Mm-hmm. And when they do that, they recycle the footage of the planes and the exploding the mountain over and over and over and over again to the point of tedium. And it kind of just kills any mood that it would have had for that moment.
Yeah.
It's not a particularly interesting shot either. It's just a mountain. It's just like a fake mountain exploding.
The ending was so night and day with the first Godzilla. It's
not somber. It's not interesting.
Like the first Godzilla had a good ending. And this Godzilla had a... shitty, uninteresting ending.
A nothing ending. It's just we buried Godzilla in ice,
and we took 10 minutes to do it, and we reused the same 3 shots over and over.
We also required a kamikaze to come up with the idea of burying Godzilla.
Yeah,
an accidental kamikaze, but it still has the same like story impact as a kamikaze does in Japanese like media.
Yeah,
it's treated in the same like with the same weight.
Yeah,
even though Kobayashi didn't intend to kill himself to save everyone. He just did by accident because he got hit with the fire breath.
Yeah, and
but like at the end of the movie, Tsukioka's like, "We did it, Kobayashi. We did it."
And that didn't have nearly as much of the same weight as the sacrifice from the first movie.
You don't get that fucking yelling for Serizawa energy.
And that's the problem with it being like a plane crash, because it's just kind of like over in an instant.
Yeah.
You don't have the tension build up, also the fact that it was even a decision.
Yeah.
Like
technically Kobayashi made the decision to get in closer to keep Godzilla there. But
yeah.
That's the only decision he made. He didn't decide to die. And then also, Godzilla just stayed there anyways while they went and got rockets attached to their fucking jets. So it seems like he was going to stay there anyways.
Yeah. And
although I guess he was covered in the snow from the... Which, by the way, Kobayashi smashing into the mountain covered Godzilla in more snow than all those missiles did combined. Well, not combined. Eventually, the missiles did overcome the amount that Kobayashi did. But like Kobayashi covered them in a lot of fucking ice and snow, apparently.
Yeah. And yet we had other planes crashing into the mountain, and they didn't do nearly as much.
Yeah. Maybe it was just that first wave, and then like after that, it was just getting little bits here and there.
Yeah, maybe the initial crash knocked off like 90% of the snow.
They should have just had missiles right then. These are like except for Kobayashi and Tsukioka, the rest of these planes are military planes. Why didn't they already have missiles?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, we should talk about the bullshit scene. The scene that's bullshit.
Okay, so when I watched this movie, I did not have cops hijack a car to chase after escaped convicts that steal their own prison van on my bingo card.
Oh, they didn't steal their own prison van. They stole a vehicle full of fuel of some kind.
Oh, I thought that was a prison van.
That's why it exploded into flames.
The way I watched that scene, I thought they just kind of like juked the cops to steal the van. But okay, no. Yeah. But yeah, no, just I did not have a convict chase scene anywhere on my bingo card for this movie.
That's also integral to the plot. You can't get rid of it or else the plot doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because like we said earlier, they're able to keep track of Godzilla. They're like much smarter about Godzilla in this movie.
Yeah.
Because like they understand he's an animal instead of, in the first movie where he is the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
In this movie, he is an animal. So they understand he's an animal and they treat him like an animal, and they can just they use like flares to distract him and make him go somewhere else.
Like that's a pretty smart thing. Like they put actual thought in how do we keep the city safe from Godzilla.
But that means they also wrote themselves into a corner for how to get Godzilla back into the city so he does the destruction.
Yeah. So
which, I would have simply just said, okay, Godzilla, we did the flares and they distracted Godzilla, but they made Anguirus come ashore, and then Anguirus destroyed something, and then fire happened, and then Godzilla came ashore. That seems like a pretty simple solution to me.
Yeah.
But instead, we have this prison escape where the prisoners end up crashing a vehicle full of fuel into the fishing factory. The fish factory, and blowing up the whole fucking thing and creating a giant flare for Godzilla to come back to.
Yeah.
In a very convoluted and very long scene.
It came totally out of left field.
It's completely out of nowhere. It's like Godzilla's starting to leave. The two, our main characters, Kobayashi and Takioka, are like going to the fish factory to see what's going on or something like that. They left Himeda at the house, and then we cut to this fucking convict transfer, which, by the way, why are we doing a convict transfer on the night that Godzilla's coming ashore?
So yeah, like the way
on the blackout night where Godzilla's gonna come ashore,
the way that scene ended, I didn't predict that. Well, okay, I did predict Godzilla destroying the city, but like...
Oh, yeah. You mean the truck blowing up.
Yeah. No, I did not predict the truck blowing up, because the way I thought when I saw like the prisoners being transferred in the truck, I thought what was happening is, okay, everyone in the city was told to turn their lights off so that the flares can do their job. But, oh no, this truck probably didn't get the memo and their headlights are going to be on, and that's what distracts Godzilla and brings him back. But no.
No, instead there's a chase scene where Tsukioka, what am I saying, Takioka? Tsukioka and Kobayashi have to drive for the police guys who have just jumped in the back of their vehicle to chase after this fucking vehicle full of fuel on the fucking night that Godzilla happens to be doing his shit.
Yeah.
It's so contrived. This is the Mighty Joe Young saving the orphanage that's on fire scene in my eyes. Yeah. It is the same kind of bullshit. It's just so contrived. It doesn't make any sense.
It's
boring.
It's so out of left field. It has nothing to do with the plot.
It just happens to get the filmmakers out of a jam that they wrote themselves into.
Yeah.
And I literally, just off the top of my head, created a better idea. Just like, I think the Anguirus idea is so much better.
Yeah.
Like, you introduced this Anguirus thing. Why not make Anguirus the reason Godzilla comes ashore and the plan fails, right?
Yeah, because...
That seems like an easy solution.
Because, like, seriously, when you think about it, their whole plan is just it just involves two parties, right? It involves the planes that are dropping the flares, and it involves Godzilla. But Anguirus is this third-party wild card that they're not really well accounting for right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he could just step in and fuck up everything.
And instead, what happens is they have this convoluted prison escape thing that comes out of left field and is weird and boring and nonsense and feels bad. And then Anguirus just like comes ashore after Godzilla does for no reason. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes both aspects worse when you could have just tied the things together. But like, this is what happens when you don't have like a whole, at least a fucking year to write your goddamn movie.
Yeah.
Give them a year, please.
This
they
is
got like October to April. How many months is that? Late October too. So you're counting from November, December, January, February, March, April. Like, it's late April, so we'll count April. That's 7 months. That's just over half a year.
Yeah, you can just feel that it has sequel syndrome. It is not written or directed by the same person.
Imagine the crunch on this one. Holy.
Oh my god, yeah.
Burning the midnight oil.
They do at least manage to write in a whole, like, second kaiju into the movie as a sequel. So that's fun.
I will say, though, you said written by a different person. That's not actually true.
Oh?
Takeo Murata is still the writer on this one.
Okay.
Or at least one of the writers. Shigeaki Hidaka is the other writer who's new. Ishiro Honda was the second writer on the previous one, who obviously, in his directorial duties, rewrote a lot of it. Now, you'll note that Shigeaki Hidaka is not the director of this movie. He's just a second person writing the screenplay. And if I remember correctly, Takeo Murata, I could be wrong on this. I shouldn't even say it because of that. But I think Takeo Murata had this script already ready to go. But I don't remember exactly on that one. This film also got a novelization, just like the previous one. So both of these are novelized, and they have like weird little changes from the novelization forms. And you actually can read them in English. They recently, I think it was like a couple of years ago, did a release of this of the novelizations of these two works in English. So you can read them. You don't need to, but you can. It's still just Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again, but there's like some interesting little changes because they're based on the original screenplays instead of whatever ended up happening in the during the process of actually making the film.
Don't worry, listener, we are not assigning any readings as homework, but if you want to do some extra credit research, go read the books and then leave us a comment on your thoughts.
Tell us what you learned. Give us a book report in the comments. Don't do that. I'm not reading that shit.
One that is not generated by ChatGPT.
Ooh, speaking of Godzilla leaving though, there was a fun line here. When Godzilla just starts leaving because of the flares that they're putting out, the owner of the fishing factory is like, "This saves Osaka and Godzilla any trouble."
Yeah,
I thought that was fun. Like, framing it as like, yeah, it's kind of good for both of us, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do count this as an ACAB moment, because why the fuck were the cops transferring convicts?
Yeah.
During a blackout, like an intentional blackout to keep Godzilla out of the city. That's a stupid move. Bad cops.
Literally, cops are always dumb and always make things worse.
True.
If you think about it, Osaka would not have been destroyed if it weren't for cops.
Yep. That's literally true. And then they wouldn't have left to Hokkaido, and Kobayashi wouldn't have died.
Yeah.
And then they could have had their little threesome in peace. I will say, the Osaka castle fight is actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best scene in the movie, honestly. You really get to just kind of dig in there with some good old kaiju fights.
Yeah.
One thing, I don't like the fast motion. I don't know about you, how you feel about it.
I wasn't paying that much close attention to it, so I don't really have a comment on it.
So during the fight scenes, between the kaiju, one of the cameramen accidentally left his camera on, put his camera into a slower speed than normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you put a camera on a slower speed, that means it's capturing less frames per second. And then when you run them at the same rate as the rest of the film, that speeds up the motion happening in the scene.
Mm.
So recording slower makes for faster motion, counterintuitively. But it makes sense when you explain it by frames.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah, it's like recording at a slower frame per second, but then you run it at the same frames per second as everything else, because that's how films generally work. You can do the opposite for slow motion. You record more frames per second and then run it at a lower frame per second run rate.
Think of it like a flip book where you're flipping the pages at the same speed, but some of the pages are missing.
Yeah. So one of the cameramen accidentally did that, and Eiji Tsuburaya liked the look of it and then did it like he was like, okay, we're gonna have one camera recording in fast motion for every scene of the monsters. And I don't like it. I think it looks really cheesy and bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have looked better in normal motion, honestly. Like, I think it, and this is like an interesting thing, because like in later Godzilla movies, oftentimes they will record the monsters at a slightly faster rate so that they look and play it in the normal, it ends up slower, like very slightly slower, because moving slow like that gives you the illusion of bigness of large monsters.
Like, these are huge, heavy things,
especially when it comes to fight scenes, because like when you're dealing with the monster lumbering around a city, you can just have the guy in the suit move slow like he's big, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that so well when you're like brawling with a guy, right?
Yeah.
Or else it looks stupid and fake. And so if you make it slightly slower, I think it really looks nice. If you make it faster, it's more intense, because a thing about the working in these suits is that you end up moving slower than you would otherwise, because the suits are so heavy. So that's why there's this impulse to do it slightly faster, so that it looks more like regular speed.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just looks bad, in my opinion. I don't know. We're gonna see this a couple more times. I think they use it in Godzilla vs. King Kong, but they definitely use it in Godzilla vs. Mothra, where they're trying to make the moth prop look good, and I think it ruins it, basically. I think it's really unfortunate and kind of ruins it. But that's, whatever. That's my opinion. It's not Tsuburaya's opinion, and he's got a lot more experience in special effects than I do, so who am I to say?
I do want to say, on the topic of the kaiju fight,
mm-hmm.
I think it was interesting take and an interesting addition to Godzilla's relationship to like humanity by having that kaiju fight, because the city gets destroyed not because Godzilla is specifically fighting the city like he was in Tokyo, but it's just a casualty in his fight with Anguirus.
Yeah, he doesn't really use his atomic breath on anything that isn't actively attacking him. Or something that attacked him previously, rather, I should say. Because he does absolutely use his atomic breath on Anguirus after he killed it.
And we're not to the stage where Godzilla is like actually a hero and saves the city, because Godzilla still destroys the city.
Yeah.
But this time it feels more accidental than like him being literally the bomb.
Yeah, here's where we get the built too big instead of the, living incarnation of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
He's an animal that's living in a world that's not made for something of his size. And to that end, they really go in hard on that when they're explaining, when Dr. Yamane from the previous movie is explaining his like theories about Godzilla, where they're talking about like the way he's talking is like, yeah, I think this creature was just asleep, and then the atomic bomb woke him up, and he reacts to light like with the flares. So like he just got woken up by the atomic bomb. And it's like, oh, so that guy, so like, in this estimation, it's not something that's like being created out of the atomic bomb, but instead something that was always there and was just woken up by the atomic bomb. And I think that kind of goes in line more with the American conception of Godzilla, that kind of excuses, like, I don't think intentionally, but metaphorically excuses their, the American involvement of the atomic bombing of Japan.
Yeah.
I think it's an American uncomfortableness with the subject of Hiroshima and Nagasaki more so than an intentional attempt to downplay American involvement. But I could be wrong on that. It could be intentional. Who knows?
Yeah.
But this film kind of engages in itself a little bit. It also makes clear that this is a second Godzilla. The other Godzilla definitely fucking died from the oxygen destroyer. Don't you worry. This sets a precedent. This is like the one thing that every movie from here on out is going to keep, like, canon is going to shift and change a lot. These guys making these movies do not care nearly as much about canon as the Marvel MCU guys do. Which is why they had someone making sure everything was being a little dictator of all the movies, to make sure all the canon was kept straight. But these guys don't care so much about that, especially once we get to reboots. But the one thing that is 100% always true until we get to Shin Godzilla is the original 1954 Godzilla is always canon. And that Godzilla died. Every Godzilla from here on out is either the second Godzilla or some other Godzilla from that point on. Except for Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All Out Giant Monster Attack. But there's a reason for that. And we'll get to that when we get to that.
All right.
I can't wait for that one. That's one of my favorite movies. Like that one's a 1954 Godzilla tier movie right there. As is Shin Godzilla and Godzilla -1. Which also kind of, I'm realizing the ones that are the best are the ones that kind of ignore the original Godzilla movie, except for Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monster All Attack, which does not ignore the original movie, but does also play with the original Godzilla concept instead of making a second Godzilla. But that's not to say that any of those other Godzilla movies aren't great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like, there's a lot going. A lot of precedent setting, I would say, in this movie for later films in the franchise. Which is one thing you could say about this movie. It sets a lot of precedents.
Yeah.
It's very influential. And that's about it. I mean, again, it's not a bad movie. It's just not super interesting, I would say, as far as Godzilla movies go. I would gladly have this on in the background, except for the fact that it's subtitled.
It's not an A-rank movie. It has its like impact.
Yeah, it has its charms.
Mm-hmm.
It has good things going on for it. It's a lot better than the movie we check out next time, which is, in fact, the same movie, but the American recut.
Oh my god.
You thought the recut of Godzilla King of the Monsters was bad? Just wait until you see Gigantus, the fire monster. That's right, they renamed him. They renamed him because they didn't think the brand name Godzilla would sell.
Oh my god.
I cannot wait to inflict this one upon you. It's so frustrating. Before we get into wrapping up, Haru, what about the themes? We didn't talk about the themes of this movie. Are there any? There must be, because everything has a theme. Everything's got themes, whether intentional or otherwise. But the themes of this movie are not particularly strong.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you've already said, Godzilla is less of an atomic bomb and more of just like a giant monster.
Yeah, I think it's a man versus nature kind of tale.
Yeah, and I don't know, like there's still the themes of like humanity trying to rise up to address this problem, this danger, like throughout when they have their initial like keeping close tabs on his location so that they can like be prepared and they can warn the right city, and then like having an actual plan for like what do we do when Godzilla shows up, and
which I think is an interesting theme that's going to become very much a recurring part of the franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it in a way leans more into preparedness to face threats. Like the first film was them kind of just figuring things out on the fly. Like they didn't like they came up with plans on a very tight schedule. And the plans did end up working out for in the very end, but like they kind of exhausted everything and nothing worked. This time around they actually like had contingencies and ideas, and
you've crystallized an idea for me. If the original Godzilla is about the dangers of the atomic bomb, this film is about preparedness for the atomic bomb.
Mm.
It's about making, it's like the public-private partnership that is required to keep us safe from nuclear annihilation. The role of us as a society to ensure that we don't blow each other up.
Yeah.
And that's as much blood as I can wring from this stone, I think. That's like that's the most charitable reading of this movie ever. I think it's a movie about making money. It's a movie about making a lot of fat stacks from the Godzilla franchise name.
It's a movie about seeing how successful the first movie was and trying to ride on that wave.
And like not giving your artist enough time to actually make it about something. But I do like this kind of idea of it as a movie about atomic preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad idea. I think well, given some more time to think about it, you could actually can make something pretty convincing out of that.
Mm-hmm.
The criminals are Cuba. No, I'm kidding. I don't think it needs to be like that specific, but like, I think there's an air of like they're just moving from 1954 to 1955. Is there like some sort of like moving from nuclear fears to nuclear acceptance? Like, I don't know. That's like pretty close timeline for that kind of shift. But maybe it's just a shift in different attitudes. Like maybe Ishiro Honda just like has a greater fear of the bomb and the dangers of science, despite being a techno optimist, as we established before, than the writers of this movie did. I don't
know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if there is anything that really changed in the landscape that like...
It's such a short time for that to have happened. Yeah. Especially because when you consider the writing must have been done pretty early on.
Yeah.
And hell, even Godzilla had a pretty fast production schedule. So the Godzilla was written, sometime like a year beforehand, right? Maybe a little bit earlier than that. But like, Godzilla did not have a slow production schedule, the original Godzilla. It just had a longer one than this one did. But, I think that's good food for thought to leave the audience on. And we can talk about the ways you could support the podcast. You can always go over to the YouTube channel, thempodian. That's where I post podcasts, including this one that you're listening to now. Give it a subscribe, like, share, all that stuff, comment. You can also give us a review on iTunes. That helps us a lot. Or, any of the other podcast app you might be using. Rate us. It really helps. Share us around. If you know someone who would like a podcast like this, something about kaiju, something about history, something that's just fun to listen to, give them a recommendation, and it really helps spread the word. Haru, where can people find you?
I am Haru Hayes on several social media platforms. I do have a YouTube channel. I have a Blue Skype account that is actually not Haru Hayes. That's haru.vspire.live. I'm Haru Hayes on Twitch. That's where you'll probably mostly find me at least once a week, maybe. And I'm also fairly active on Discord. Other than that, you can't find me anywhere. I'm a ghost.
What? And I am Thempire Iain, vampire VTuber and card game extraordinaire. You can find me at Thempire Iain on YouTube and Twitch and Blue Sky. Additionally, you can find me at Tomb of Thempire Iain for my Let's Plays if you don't want to watch Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. But I think the video essays would be pretty interesting to people who are interested in this channel. You might not like the Yu-Gi-Oh angle, but I do lots of stuff beyond that in the video essays. Like I just released one that's about dooming about the current Yu-Gi-Oh format, but instead of talking about that, I mostly talked about the Mayan apocalypse theories of 2012. It was a really fun time. So you can check that out, or you can check out, of course, Tomb of Thempire Iain, where the podcast will be. And with that said, I think we're ready to head out of here. Are you ready to say... Should we say goodbye to Anguirus? We said goodbye to Godzilla a lot recently.
Yeah, let's say goodbye to Anguirus.
All right. Sayonara, Anguirus.
Sayonara, Anguirus.
I don't have a joke for this one. I'm putting as much effort in as the people who made this movie did.